Welcome, folks, to the Potomac River Jazz Club's Jazz Talk. We do these about 10 times a year, almost monthly, and lots of different topics exploring traditional jazz and adjacent topics. And we're really excited to have our main speaker, Craig Klein, but also Jared Lofstead. So I know you all have read about Craig in the promotional material, but Jared is joining us. He's doing a documentary on the Palm Court Jazz Café, and so he's gonna do a little talking and share some of his materials too. So we get a second voice, which is kind of fun and fabulous surprise. Um, I came up with the idea of the Palm Court as I was thinking about, we what other topics, what other things should I be grabbing at? And I started thinking about important venues and how those important venues can foster such a community and foster certain sounds, types of music, that kind of thing, and they end up these iconic, beloved things. And so Palm Court was one of the first ones that popped in my head. So Craig's going to be talking about that Palm Court Jazz Cafe in New Orleans. And then next month, Donna Sims is going to be talking about Donna's Bar and Grill. So we've got two kind of fun New Orleans venues back to back. So I'm going to hand everything over to Craig. I'm going to mute myself, but I'll pop in and out as you want music and different things.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Thank you very much. It's fun to always think about what is an iconic venue. We all have, if you're from a big city or even a small city, you always have some sort of iconic venue in your town. And New Orleans is a very special place. We've had many iconic venues. I think the one now you might think of as the most iconic would be Preservation Hall. It's been in existence since 1961. It actually goes back before that when Larry Bornstein from the late 50s. But the Palm Court stepped in and sort of, not didn't pick up where Pres Hall left off because they didn't really leave off. The Palm Court started as not even an alternative to the style of music that is played at Preservation Hall. But it became a venue like a supper club, which you really don't see that too much. And it used a lot of almost all local musicians, as Preservation Hall does. So that in itself makes it very iconic. It started in 1989, and it went on for 35 years. That's quite a run. It was started by George Buck and Nina Buck. And George Buck, he passed away probably 20 years ago, at least, maybe.
2011.
Yeah, 2011, George passed away. Um, and it was because George's love of New Orleans jazz music. His wife Nina is from Britain. She's an English lady, and Nina was married to Sammy Remington many, many years ago. So she was very much involved in the jazz scene and knows New Orleans music. So George Buck bought this building on the corner of Decatur and Governor Nichols. It was almost like it was the whole block. It was a French Market warehouse at one point, where way back in the early days, they would store fruits and vegetables. So it was a warehouse where all of that. George bought the building, renovated the whole thing, made it into a world-class club. The sound was tweaked. There was special panels that helped mute the sound from bouncing around. He also built a recording studio on the second floor, and he had his offices up there, and along with an apartment up on the third floor where he and Nina lived. And one of the cool things that George Buck did was he had a nonprofit, a foundation called Jazzology and GHB Records. And that was separate from the Palm Court, although it was housed in the same building. And what George did with that was his love of jazz music and early jazz music was that he would find dormant labels that were no longer putting out records, and he would buy those labels and recut, not recut, but remaster all of, he would buy the masters and he would remaster all of that and then put it out. He's put out many hundreds of records, and these are just some of the few of them that you can see. Yeah, there you go. That's George Buck right there. And that's with one of his records. So George, he was just a fanatic about jazz music. Now the Palm Court was a for-profit business. Jazzology and GHB was a not-profit. Now, and I called Kathy earlier, and she pointed that out to me. But she also pointed out that the Palm Court didn't really make a profit. It was it was really a love, and they put a lot of their money into it. George was a wealthy man. He owned radio stations, so he had the resources to do that, and he really they hired local musicians. So some of the early bands that played there was, I remember when they first opened, I went to the grand open, and it was just an amazing space. Oh, Lewis Nelson, Pud Brown, the Humphrey Brothers, Chester Zardis, Tom Ebert. Oh, the list was endless. They were using a lot of the musicians that played at Preservation Hall to play at the Palm Court. So the music was still in that New Orleans traditional vein, which they're really, besides Preservation Hall and the Palm Court, I hate to say they were the only two, because sometimes you would find things, but the only two that regularly had this kind of music playing there. That's indicative of New Orleans. Only in New Orleans, it's New Orleans music, and it was played by New Orleans musicians, the real homegrown New Orleans musicians at Preservation Hall and at the Palm Court. So it was a very special place. The food was great. Chef Bobby Davis was part of the whole family. He started out as a busboy in 1989. Then he moved up to a waiter, and then I think somewhere around just shortly after or before Hurricane Katrina, he became the head chef. And they really, Palm Court, just they took care of the musicians. They always fed you. They gave you whatever you want. It was a very special place. And then also here on this call is Jared Lofstead, and Jared is making a film about the Palm Court, and it's gonna fill a lot of voids on what we don't know. Because Jared, how long have you been? Tell us about your film and what you got going on here. Introduce
Well,
yourself and tell us about yourself a little bit.
Jared Lofstead. I'm a documentary filmmaker and kind of media producer here in New Orleans. We started on this film. We actually started on it in November of 2024. The court closed. The last day of business was in June of 2024, and I've been going there for about 10 years. My girlfriend has been a hostess there for 20 years. And it was just such a special place. You didn't want to see it go without getting its due, But where we started, you talk about the importance of a venue to a place, to a community, and to a musical tradition. Musicians need a place to perform, and people need a place to gather. That's all there is to it, for there to be a scene. And like Craig said, everybody knows Preservation Hall, but it's a very different space and a very different atmosphere. Very different. World-class musicians, but Palm Court had bathrooms. Palm Court had air conditioning. Palm Court had food. Palm Court had Bobby cooking and Eileen running the bar, and their family working in the place, and Nina's family working. And so what struck me that was, one, we all know that music venues and the music business is hard pressed, and venue owners, it's just an increasingly impossible business. So like Craig said, that the Bucks devoted so much of their wealth to their passion and to their love, is that's to be commended in a time when philanthropy and culture and money doesn't get spent that way anymore. So that's kind of the center. The center of the film is, it's kind of between Bobby's story and Nina's story, having worked together for 35 years. You know, Bobby was 15 when he started. He was 51 when it closed. So that's a whole life, you know, for a New Orleans chef. It's his entire life tied into that place. And Nina's life, you know, or sort of second life, with George and moving to New Orleans in, I think, 86. You know, that's wrapping up another segment of her life. She just turned 83, 84. And I don't know, you know, these things don't last without people supporting them, and then they don't, if they're not supported, they don't exist anymore. You know, preservation is an essential part of traditional music, I think, and as is performance and his space. So that's why we made the movie. And we tie in the third rail of the film follows Danny Barker, who it opens with Danny Barker and kind of ends with Danny. You know, who was a guitarist and banjo player from New Orleans, who, you know, recorded with all the greats, all of them of an era, and came back to New Orleans in '65, and then didn't play at Preservation Hall.
No, he didn't.
Because, in part, because of a highly unctuous article that appeared in the New Yorker in 1966. But tying in Danny ties you into the Barberan family, ties you into everything good about New Orleans, every good note that comes out of New Orleans, that comes out of the 6th Ward and the 7th Ward and uptown. You know, that these musical traditions and families, and now, you know, all the way up to Mark Bro, who is the trumpeter and is, I don't know, Danny Barker's great grand cousin, nephew, something, you know. So that's why we made the film.
It'll be interesting to watch the film. It'll bring back a lot of memories. The Palm Court always has great memories for me. And Ellie, you remember I met you how many years ago, whatever, in the street, and you were going, "Hey, where can I go get some food and some music?"
Well, I was walking down the street and I wanted to hear some music and I wanted to eat, and I saw Craig get out of his car with his trombone case. And I stopped and I turned around. I'm like, "Wait a minute, where are you playing?" Because I knew I was going to hear good music if I followed Craig. And he said Palm Court, and I thought, they have food. This is exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've been going to Palm Court for quite a while too. It has been a while, but
No, you have.
so serendipitous that I ran into you on the street, because
Yeah.
that wasn't prominently in my head, and that was exactly what I needed. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, going to Palm Court every time was exactly what we all needed. It was a classy place. It had good New Orleans funky, soulful, traditional jazz, played by some of the great older, like second generation musicians. When Jared talks about Danny Barker playing it, Danny was born in the early 1900s, so 9 maybe, somewhere around there. And he left New Orleans, like Jared said, and then when he came back, and I called Kathy Edegren and Lars Edegren. Kathy is from England. Lars is from Sweden. Lars is a piano player. Kathy started working with Nina right away. She said when they first opened Palm Court, it was like a cafe jazz club. It turned into a restaurant later, and because they were on a shoestring budget, Kathy said she just volunteered her time, because Kathy was as much as into the music as anybody. She's married to a musician who came to New Orleans and did some amazing things. We can talk about Lars in a little bit also. So Kathy's been with Nina from almost from day one. She was the lady when you walked in, the British lady at the door with the pad and said, "Oh, can I help you?" And you get the table, and she's so lovely, and she's an integral part of the Palm Court. She helped keep the Palm Court going for all of these years. She's very important. Her husband, Lars, I'll touch on. Some of you probably know who Lars is. He's a piano player from Sweden. He came here in 1964, and he went right to Preservation Hall. He knew what he was coming for. He was coming for that New Orleans traditional jazz. He established himself as a musician here, and in sometime in the 1970s or so, he started becoming a regular player at Preservation Hall. But he knew all that second generation, George Lewis and Nelson and Jim Robinson. He knew all of those people, and so now actually, Lars is now running GHB and Jazzology Records, since the building is now no longer the Palm Court. The sign still hangs up there, and all of the pictures, the tables are still there. It looks exactly as we left it 2 years ago. The upstairs, Lars still has the GHB record, but they have another building there in the process of changing over. And I talked about the recording studio on the second floor. They made a lot of great records came out of that studio. I've recorded there many times. It was just a valuable resource to have there. I played there on Friday. Lucien Barberin, like Jared said, was part of the Barberin dynasty. They're the blue bloods of New Orleans traditional jazz, related to Danny, everything. So Lucien had Friday nights and Sunday nights. And Lucien died in 20, and I was playing there over the many, many years, different nights here and there, just kind of subbing. When Lucien died, I got moved in. I got his Friday night. So I played there on Friday nights. Mark Bro took over the Sunday nights. And the Friday night band became, Kevin Lewis led the band on trumpet. And we made, just before, actually it was after the Palm Court closed, we were able to make a recording of that band, the Friday night Palm Court Jazz Band, Kevin Lewis, Friday night Palm Court Jazz Band, featuring Yolanda Robinson. And we were able to go upstairs and record that record. And that's probably the last record that GHB Records put out. And we'll play a cut from that if Jared has. There you go. That's the band right there.
Yeah, that's
Well, Kevin Lewis,
band.
trumpet. Yeah, and actually, what's really cool is that band is still alive. And now what we do is maybe once a month, once every other month, we play on Fridays to keep the Friday tradition going at the Snug Harbor. So the Palm Court Jazz Band is still alive, and we're really trying to keep that Palm Court spirit alive. And we play Friday night, one Friday a month at the Snug Harbor. Nina comes, and if you've been to the Palm Court, when the music started, Nina would dance. She's a dancer. Jared, you got a picture of Nina dancing somewhere?
Yeah, I'll dig one
Nina,
out.
she ruled the dance floor at the Palm Court, and she got people up in second line and dancing. So at Snug Harbor, where it's not a dance club at all, it's a sit-down jazz club, Nina gets everybody up dancing, as she always does. So the spirit of the Palm Court is still thriving, and we're keeping that whole thing going. There she is. And it's funny because she wasn't a singer, but every once when it was happy birthday, she would get on that mic and try to sing happy birthday, and it would be kind of fun. And if Nina sang happy birthday to you, it was a special moment. Really great. It's so happy. And I have so many memories. Jared, can you have the picture of Pud Brown anywhere? So some of these older, it was that picture with Lucien and Danny on there.
Yeah, I got it.
Kathy told me that Danny Barker played at the Palm Court for 4 years, and he wrote a very significant song called the Palm Court Strut. And here's the picture. This is okay. So that's Danny Barker there on the left with the banjo. That is Thais singing, and Thais used to be in a musical called One More Time. She was the big star of that show. On the trombone is a very young Lucien Barberin, part of that Barberin dynasty. Wow. He's actually a great cousin of Danny Barker. And then on the right is a guy named Pud Brown. Pud was an interesting character. He was old then. Pud was he's from New Orleans. He played in vaudeville. He played in circuses. He was and he was so eccentric. He lived in a French Quarter, and he was like a hoarder. He's always tinkering. He was building things, but instruments. He always fixed his own instruments, and he had tape and screws and blow torches and all of this stuff on stage. And whenever he would come on stage, he would take a bag of parts and empty them on his feet. And throughout the whole gig, he's tinkering, trying to fit the different pieces. Oh, I like this piece better. And one specific moment I remember, I was playing at the Palm Court with Pud Brown, and I'm playing a solo. And a lot of times you close your eyes when you're playing the solo. And I could just, somehow I could see this flame burning to the right of me. And I look over, and Pud Brown he's soldering a piece of his instrument on the stage while I'm playing the solo. There he is with a little soldering torch, and he's trying to solder one of his pieces to his instrument. And I'm trying to play my solo, and I'm looking at him like this, and I'm being very distracted. And he's doing this thing, fixing his instrument on stage with the blowtorch. That was one of the characters of the Palm Court. Ellie, let's play that song. So Danny Barker wrote this song for the Palm Court. It's called the Palm Court Strut. It became a classic New Orleans. It's almost was I had a bit of a hit. A lot of bands have recorded this song. If you go on Spotify or YouTube and you search the Palm Court Strut, it's under Pud Brown's name as the band, but Danny wrote the song. Danny's playing banjo, and he's also singing the song to it. And if you listen closely, all of the solos are spectacular, but listen to how Danny Barker plays that rhythmic part on the banjo. It's unlike anybody has ever played before. But yeah, is that the picture of Pud right there? Yeah, so the Palm Court Strut, basically the song is just a 12 bar blues. There's been thousands of songs written with the 12 bar blues form. And that was Danny Barker's composition, recorded many times. And whenever that song would play, Nina would jump up and she was the first one at it. It's like the song was written for Nina and George Buck. Perfect. And that clip that Jared showed, that was Pud Brown playing clarinet with Danny. They might have even been playing Palm Court Strut at that moment. So Jared, the film. You want to show a little bit of your film in the beginning, or any of it, and you got any
Yeah.
you want to
show a
pull?
little footage. I'm sorry, just so everybody knows, apparently my software won't let me play the audio, but you can take a look at kind of the opening of the film, maybe, and then we got some of Craig performing in another section. I'm happy to show you. This is, let me cue it up, right? Share this. Can everybody see that? The interior of the Palm Court stage?
Yeah.
Cool. I'll just let it run. We filmed a bunch of this since the club's been closed, because of course it's hard to film in a club that's running. Now let me turn the audio down since you can't hear it. And then we got to use all this Jules Kahn footage from the 60s and 70s from the Historic New Orleans collection, which is what you see here. That's Danny and Ben Jaffe, who owned Preservation Hall and whose son now does, performing before trying to get crowds together in Jackson Square, trying to get people to come to a ball. Then we have all this great footage, which is of the Sixth Ward in New Orleans getting down in the 60s and 70s. And that's how the film opens. Current second line, that was actually from George Buck's second line. There's Nina dancing. There's Nina. Some elders. There's Kevin Lewis and Dr. Michael White. That's Bobby Davis, the chef, and his crew, and John Nelson, his second in command. That's from George's funeral and their wedding. Greg Stafford in there. That's Sean King, Ernie, Ellie.
Yeah.
A lot of greats. Tuba Fats in there. Greg Leroy, Danny, Mark Bro, and his wife Megan. Yeah, we just wanted to show what the place was like alive, and now what it looks like in the absence of it, in the absence of a club, in the absence of all this life and culture that the Bucks, that was their part. They did their time, they put their part in to give all of us something really special.
Yeah. It was really sad. When the Palm Court closed, we all felt like it was a death in the family almost. It was a tremendous loss. But the memories of the Palm Court will always be lingering because they really are that iconic venue in New Orleans. And Kathy reminded me, shortly after they started in '89, a couple years later, they also made the restaurant a part of the scene there. But in their early first 10 years of the Palm Court, that's when the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival used to have night concerts.
Yeah.
It was part of the festival were night shows, and you bought tickets to that. And the Palm Court was one of the venues that some of those night shows happened at. So it allowed the Palm Court to bring in some major heavy hitters, like Jay McShann played at the Palm Court. They had Doc Cheatham was a regular at the Palm Court. Doc Cheatham was a trumpet player extraordinaire from maybe from the 1920s, 1930s. He recorded up at the studio up there, made a record or two in New Orleans. Also, Kathy reminded me they did it was either during Jazz Fest, it was a night of musicians who had played with Louis Armstrong. And Arvell Shaw, who was Lewis's bass player for many, many years. And Joe Marini, I think it was one of his clarinet players. And I forgot who the third person she said was. But they had the resources at the time because Jazz Fest was helping back some of these concerts to bring in some of these major, and it would pair them with New Orleans musicians. So that was an important part of what the Palm Court did, and to help to establish, how valid they really were in the beginning, and the legacy of what they've done will always be with us. Every time I walk by the Palm Court, I just have to look over there and reminisce of all of the great times we had there playing this great music.
And I mean, generations of players, Greg, generations, right? All the old heads from Bud Brown and Doc Cheatham's generation and Mr. Furbus's generation, all the UCats, and then Connor and Sean King, and a whole new era and Kevin, and just a whole new era, passing it down. It was really amazing.
Sure was. And you mentioned Lionel Furbus. Furbus lived to 102 years old. He was an old Creole musician, like old school Creole. Very studied. He always claimed to be a melody man. So whenever he he would play on Saturdays at the Palm Court. And whenever he played, he would bring his book with the tunes, melodies that he actually wrote out. And that's Doc Cheatham on the left there. And so Doc Cheatham, there he is. You see his music stand in front of him? He wasn't really an improviser. He claimed to not be an improviser. He always read the melodies. There he is, Doc Cheatham. Okay, that's his 100th birthday party.
Lionel Furbus.
He had his birthday party at the Palm Court. And I'll tell you, I was standing there talking to him.
That's Lionel Furbus.
Mr.
Lionel Furbus. That's Lionel Furbus. So Furbus's 100th birthday was at the Palm Court, and I'm standing there talking to Mr. Furbus, and he says he sees a very beautiful lady standing right there, and he says to her, "Come here. You ever been kissed by a 100-year-old man before?" And I thought, how cute is he? 100. And he was still playing gigs at 100. And Mr. Furbus told me that he practiced. He was actually practicing his trumpet almost every day, and that's the only way that you can play one of these brass instruments. Are no joke. You have to practice them, and especially to be at that age that Mr. Furbus lived to and played to. You had to be on top of your game. So he was practiced. He always practiced. It was his whole lifetime of playing trumpet. There was another musician, Wendell Eugene. Wendell was a trombone player, and he played with the Olympia Brass Band. He had a long career as a trombone player, and he played Saturday nights with Mr. Furbus also. And when after Hurricane Katrina, Wendell put his life back together, built his house, and then he started getting dementia, and it turned into Alzheimer's, and he couldn't really remember anything. But his daughter would still bring him to the gig at the Palm Court. They'd bring him to the gig. They'd put him on stage with Mr. Furbus, and it didn't matter to tell him what song they were playing. But as soon as they started playing the song, he was there. He knew the music didn't go away from his brain, and he was a dear friend of mine and a mentor of mine as a trombone player also. And I can remember watching him, the look of somebody with Alzheimer's it's staring out. But as soon as the music started, bam, he was in it. He was alive, and he was Wendell Eugene again. And that happened at the Palm Court, and that's what Nina Buck gave the older generation of musicians a home. And it really was a home for the musicians to be at. And it became the place where if you weren't playing, you would just stop in and listen. It was one of those spots that musicians you just pass through. It was a fun place because you knew you would see all your friends and your fellow musicians, and there was always the highest level of New Orleans jazz fans were hanging at the Palm Court because they knew the real deal was happening right there. Yeah, so that was yeah, Lionel Furbos. He was another one of those musicians that was important to the Palm Court.
Yeah, I got another night for you, Craig.
Okay.
More recent.
Yeah.
You got that? Yeah.
This was the night that it was a benefit for Lucien Barberin. Lucien died in 2020, but this was before he died. He had prostate cancer and he needed some money. And this was a benefit. That guy playing the tenor saxophone on the left, that's Jerry Weldon. He's from New York, and Jerry plays in Harry Connick Jr.'s band as Lucien
Right.
did. So Jerry came down for that. Yeah, that's Kevin Lewis on trumpet, Tim Laughlin on clarinet. Looks like Gerald French back there on drums, Paul Longstreth on piano, and Josh Guzzi on bass. And then sitting over to the right of me, I think that's that is Kermit.
Yeah, I think that's Kermit playing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a special night for a lot of musicians came through and helped Lucien raise some money that he desperately needed. Now you see all those pictures on the back wall. Those were just so great. That's you see the trombone player with the brass band hat. That's Louis Nelson. Nelson was one of the first. Yeah, right there. He was one of the first ones to play at the Palm Court. To the left of him is the bass player Chester Zardis, right there. Yep. To the left of him is another bass player, Chuck Beatty. Chuck was another iconic bass player that played a lot at the Palm Court. He loved playing at the Palm Court. And then over to the right, past up to the right, you see the red, right? Oh, to the next one over there. That is, you can't really see it so good, but that's a picture of Doc Cheatham and Nicholas Payton. And they did a record, and I think they recorded it upstairs at the Palm Court. That record won a Grammy at some point. And it was like Doc Cheatham was, maybe in his upper 80s, and Nick Payton was very young 20s. Another just collaborating between many years of musicians. So yeah, the Palm Court. So we, as I said before, we keep the Palm Court the memory live, and we made a record, and maybe we could play one cut from that it's called Make Me a Pallet on the Floor. It features Yolanda Robinson. Yolanda is the daughter of Topsy Chapman, and Topsy was one of another iconic singers of New Orleans. She was a big star in the One More Time show. She also played, I think, she was with us on Friday nights. And okay, we got a picture of that's Yolanda, and Ellie, you can play the track, and then Jared, if you got a picture of Topsy by any chance up there,
I don't.
This is the band that you're going to hear.
Yeah, might have some video of her. I'll check.
Oh man, I went to restart it, and I'm having a little bit of Bluetooth speaker issues, so I'm going to come back into it, y'all. Coming up in a sec.
I'll play some footage in the meantime.
Yeah,
I got some
take
live footage and keep everybody engaged.
Oops, that's not the one. That's not the one. Dun, dun.
And the piano, they didn't skimp on anything. The piano was a Steinway. So they used the best of the best at the Palm Court. That's why they had the best of the best musicians at the Palm Court.
There it is. I knew there was a clip of it in there.
There we go.
It's kind of an apt track for back in this footage.
Make me a pallet on your floor.
Chef Bobby.
So when your woman comes home, she will never know. Just make me a pallet on your floor. Make it soft, make it easy, make it low. Oh, make it soft, make it easy, make it low. So when your woman comes home, she will never know. Just make me a pallet on your floor. I wake up in the morning, baby, and make you a great big meal. Yes, I will. Oh, I wake up in the morning, baby. Yes, and make you a great big meal.
Look at me.
That was you?
That was me. Right there.
I'm gonna have to
Thank
give
you.
you a credit in the film.
Cameo.
Make me a pallet, yeah. Come on and make me.
So you know I was there.
Yeah, you see, I told you, everybody, who's who would show up at the Palm Court. Michael Gerry was always everywhere. He was one of the people who would show up. You know that, Michael. Michael knew where to go. And just the fact that you saw him in a cameo in 1999 at the Palm Court, that tells you something right there. You know, he knew. It was a special place. It's kind of fun to look at those clips. Quite good. Go ahead, Michael. You want to comment on what's your take on the Palm Court, and what is your on
Well, thank you. I don't want to interrupt the program, but there was one point that you haven't brought up, and I think she needs to have some credit because I worked with her on numerous occasions, and that's Sue Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sue Hall was a teacher in the Orleans Parish school system, and I worked with her for a number of years at the Lafayette School up on Carrollton, and also the Gentilly Woods School, and I would come out there and give talks on New Orleans history. And she was doing some of the booking at Palm Court, and she would have me come and give the lectures at her schools. I posted 2 pictures at the Potomac River Jazz site. One was a picture that I took of Louis Armstrong's bass player, Arvell Shaw. And I also posted another picture, and that's somebody that also needs to be acknowledged because he took a lot of pictures there. The late, great Herman Leonard.
Yeah.
Herman Leonard, and on the Potomac River Jazz site, I posted a copy of a Herman Leonard picture that I had with Herman Leonard took this picture of me and Doc Cheatham, and I posted both of those on the Potomac River Jazz set. But thank you very much. Hey, it's documented that I was there, so I'm glad I'm here to still acknowledge the fact, and God bless George and Nina for what they did and the contribution that they made to the development and the perpetuation of the music there on Decatur Street.
That's right. And Nina always says, if George Buck didn't do it, it would have never been done without George Buck. And so many of these people were part of it. And like Michael said, Sue Hall, she was booking the music in the beginning. She was also the wife of Lewis Nelson. Her and Nelson were married later. So yeah, Sue Hall. There's so many people. And then there was a couple of questions about why did the Palm Court close? I saw that, and we can address that. Like when I talked to Kathy earlier today, just to get some information from her, and I said this earlier, the GHB and Jazzology, George Buck started that in 1949 as a nonprofit, and he's got it set up as a trust, so it'll go on forever in perpetuity. But she said the Palm Court was a for-profit, but she pointed out that the Palm Court never did really make a profit. So before it was just draining. It was just taking a lot of money to keep the Palm Court sustained. And sometimes there'd be more people in the band and in the kitchen together than they were in the audience. So things kind of, and Nina, she kept going. She wouldn't pull a plug at all. And I just think at some point it got to like, it's costing tens of thousands of dollars a month just to keep it open, and they couldn't do it anymore.
I think it's worth noting too, so that everybody has and they wouldn't, I don't think they would, Nina wouldn't want to toot her own horn or anything. But over COVID, Nina kept paying her whole kitchen staff to keep them on staff. She kept, even though she couldn't operate, she kept paying everyone so that they would come back and so that she could bring everyone back. She didn't want to lose anyone. And I think that's, business is not easy in New Orleans. For those of you who don't know, it's a difficult business already before you're booking a band and have a kitchen. Then you come through COVID, and then this is what it looks like on Decatur Street now, where I guess this was in December, but you see the street is blocked off. You can't even drive past. You can't drive to the Palm Court right now, or you couldn't, for half the year this year. So it's a good thing that she did close when she did, because it's already an impossible business.
Yeah. Nina was
really, she invested in her, she invested in those people. And I think that's certainly worth noting.
Yeah, I think it was a financial decision they had at some point. And Nina, it makes all of us. It makes me really sad to even think that it had to close like that. But it just wasn't making. It wasn't sustaining. So
as you mentioned before, it's still there, and it looks like it's going to open tonight. Any idea what the future is of the property of the venue?
It's going to
It's
go
going
on
to
the
be for
market.
sale.
Yeah.
Say again.
No, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, it's the property will be for sale. Nina doesn't want it to be the Palm Court. She does, because without her, it's not the Palm Court. So if anybody opened it or bought it and then opened it, it couldn't bear the name Palm Court. I think we've seen the end of that. That's the end of an era right there. And there have been people interested in the building and maybe trying to keep it as it would be a perfect venue. It's the possibilities are great. I think it's needed and to pull some of that, from Frenchman Street to kind of really make a nice place out of it. It could be, but I mean, who knows what it could be? A developer could buy it and do whatever they want with, not whatever they want, but
Almost. They could put a
I mean,
t-shirt shop in it
almost.
tomorrow. They could
Yeah,
put it, it could be a t-shirt shop and apartments upstairs or Airbnbs very easily.
yeah,
So yeah, someone has to. It doesn't, and having spent a considerable amount of time in the building,
yeah,
it doesn't need a ton of work, but it needs some work. It needs an update.
yep,
But yeah, someone someone needs to
I've
see the economic potential.
I've got my fingers crossed that it stays a venue in that I mean, I say at my age, I'm middle-aged, but I don't have it in me to stand up for 3 hours and watch a show anymore. I love to be able to have a place to sit, and there are not that many seated venues in the city. There are some, you can sit at Snug and whatever, but it was just so beautiful to be able to have dinner and sit like to have a full dinner like that with a spacious table and space around you. Nobody else was doing that, right? And so who knows if it will maintain like that, but it is nice to have a seated venue. Yeah.
yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Anybody else?
Somebody else put in the chat. They were asking about the documentary and where they could see it. When would it be coming out, and when could they see it? So that was one question in there.
Well, thank you for asking. We're finishing up the kind of final edit this month, and we're going to send it to be sound mixed. And then we're going to put it in festivals, and that usually takes about a year. And then then we got to get booked. So if anybody wants to see us, you just have to book it. And it's pretty, we're going to take it around. First, I think we want to focus where jazz aficionados and people and fans are. So I figure first to the festivals, and then we'll think about putting it on streaming or on demand.
I'll bet you Ellie will be happy to see some excerpts on this Zoom call. When did you say you're going to finish in April?
I mean, we'll be submitting it probably starting in April to festivals.
Yeah, keep in touch about that.
Yeah, absolutely will, and we would love to play DC. Play the Potomac region happily.
Yeah.
And we could bring the band too. We bring the Friday night band and make a whole New Orleans party of it. That's kind of what the magic is, is that when you've seen all these amazing top shelf musicians play so casually and comfortably week after week, and just the film won't ever do it justice. You need to see, a set, and you can watch the film and hopefully eat something, and then you might get close to it.
One of the cool things that Nina would do, there's a festival in Ascona, Switzerland, and it's based off of New Orleans. It's focused around New Orleans traditional jazz. It started as New Orleans traditional jazz, the Ascona Jazz Festival. And Nina would go over there and bring Bobby, her chef, and Eileen. Eileen is Bobby's wife. She was the bartender. And bring them, and they would set up a whole Palm Court thing and cook and have a sort of the whole vibe of the Palm Court in Ascona, Switzerland. So Bobby is. Yeah. Oh, you do. Okay. Bobby has been also one of those. Yeah, that's in Ascona, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it would
I
bring the
got
sign. It would almost be like that's Leroy.
yeah. That's Leroy
Yeah,
and Gerald.
Ascona's.
Oh, there's
And
Gerald.
the festival still goes on in Ascona, but they would turn a club into the Ascona Palm Court Jazz Club in this beautiful little village in Switzerland, and Nina would bring over a lot of her crew, Bobby especially, and Bobby was there cooking, and Eileen was there, and Kathy was there. So yeah, that's Lars Edgren on the
Okay.
left there. Yeah, Lars on the left. That's Topsy, Richard Moten on bass, Greg Stafford on trumpet, and Robert Harris on trombone.
Here's Lewis Nelson in Ascona.
Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
Nelson. Yeah,
This would be the legendary Lewis Nelson
right
in
there.
Ascona.
Yeah, and he was one of the first musicians to play at the Palm Court. Absolutely one of the first. He was iconic New Orleans trombone player.
What was the first time you played over in Ascona?
Who, about 25 or 30 years ago with Leroy Jones.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
Leroy.
That's Leroy.
Right. Yeah, I might have you
You know.
have you in this set.
Yeah.
I got this from a French guy named Michel
That's-
Laplace.
That's Charlie Gabriel right there. Yeah.
That's
Charlie
like
Gabriel still is playing saxophone at Preservation Hall. He's 93 years old.
Is
yeah,
that
he just
Gerald?
turned 93.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Charlie.
Was that Gerald on drums?
It was.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I think
God.
so.
Yeah.
This would be 1989, maybe
Okay.
1990. There's Mark.
Yeah, that's an Ascona. That's Mark Bro right there.
There's
Steve Pistorius.
Yeah. And these are all musicians that played at Palm Court.
Yeah.
Stephen Walker.
Trombone shorty.
Yeah, that's Troy right there.
Yeah. There's Leroy and Lucien.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Leroy and Lucian. Yep. Legacy musicians. And that must be in Ascona too, right?
Yeah, that's Ascona, I think 1990, maybe.
Yeah.
This one has
Stephen Walker.
Orange is in this one, and Walter Payton.
Steve
Mhm.
Pistorius.
Yeah. Yeah, I got all these from a French cat.
Yeah.
Oh, look,
Wendell.
there he is himself.
Yeah.
Jabrunius.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was just one of the things that Nina did, was to bring her staff over to Ascona. And she probably paid for it out of her own pocket to do all of that.
Absolutely.
And that just shows the love that Nina really has for this music. She's just so intense about this New Orleans jazz, that carried over into what the Palm Court was. She was the Palm Court. She really was. George Buck was the man behind the scenes, but Nina was the voice of that. As Donna's, you're going to do a talk on Donna's.
Yeah, I got the
Ellie in the
Donna.
next month.
Yeah. Our March
Yeah, there's
talk
Donna.
is Donna is gonna come talk about the club and her book. Yeah.
Yeah, that was another iconic venue. That picture right there, I remember that night I was there. It was a trumpet. All these trumpet players showed up on this gig, Leroy Jones Quintet, and it's Nicholas Payton, Troy, Kid Chocolate. Oh,
Chocolate.
and Mayfield is in there somewhere, and they had this cutting contest of these trumpet players just blowing. So that'll be a good one to be a part of. And you can see the banner in the background that says Jazz Ascona, but that's at Donna's.
Yeah, that was in 06 when I think Jazz Ascona came and brought some, they brought some money, some post-Katrina money.
Yeah.
These all came from.
That's Troy. Okay, that's Trombone Shorty back there. You just went by when he was about 15, right there. Troy's about 15 years old there.
Mark
Brooks.
Brooks, and then his sister Juanita on the next picture.
That was Juanita.
Right there.
Erlen Riley.
There's Hurlin,
Yes,
yeah.
Henry Butler.
Henry Butler. Wow, yes, indeed.
Gerald.
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 Yep.
There's another one, a Topsy in '04 or '03.
Topsy. And
But the opportunity, the opportunity for everybody to go over that, to bring the same band, right, to play with these same cats and play up against that, just what an amazing gig, man.
yeah. Yeah, and the Palm Court was a big part of that in those early years because they sponsored a stage, they sponsored the club. So the role of the Palm Court will go down in history in New Orleans. It will be one of those places that will live on. It'll be talked about because of the level of musicians that played there and
Yeah.
definitely. Is that Herman Leonard?
No.
No,
That's not Herman.
That wasn't Herman.
I got that Herman Leonard photo.
Marva Wright.
Somewhere in there.
There's Marva, yep. Algiers, that's in Ascona.
Mm-hmm. Part of our film is about this connection, that people from New Orleans get this opportunity to see, I don't know, how people live in Switzerland. It's pretty eye-opening, at least for, some of the, a lot of people's first time in Europe, getting there through their music, or in Bobby's case, through his cooking.
Yeah.
It's really something. Not a lot of people from uptown, back of town get to see these things. There's a beautiful Danny Barker from 1988. Oh.
Yeah. And it feels good to be carrying the Palm Court tradition on it. It feels like it's an obligation that we have to do. And Ellie, thank you for doing this. You definitely revived a lot of memories for all of us, I think, whoever stepped foot in that place. And to be able to keep that Friday night band, we still, like I said, we play at the Palm Court. We'll be at Jazz Fest. I forgot which day, but if you look it up, Kevin Lewis Friday night jazz band. We can't call it the Palm Court band because sometimes the other Palm Court band at Lars Books plays there, but we call it's Kevin Lewis and a Friday night jazz band featuring Yolanda Robinson, but that's the Palm Court band. We have another show at the Palm Court the first Friday coming up in March. If anybody's around, it's
at Snug?
6th. March 6th, the Palm Court band will be at the Snug Harbor. So yeah, we're keeping it, and Nina will always be there, and she'll get up and dance when we play the Palm Court strut. So.
I know I have a lot of fond memories, from being there through the years, and a lot of people do. So I'm so happy to know this documentary is coming out, and it's been really, really cool to get all of those perspectives. You two guys, but also Michael and other voices on its history. Do we have any other questions before we wrap it up this evening?
I want to thank whoever edited that tape and included me in it. That was an auspicious occasion for me to just serendipitously sitting here watching, and bam, there I am.
99.
That's pretty fun. That was pretty fun.
But I also wanted to mirror something that Ellie said because it affects me also. I made 85 this year, and one of the things that I'm faced with even today in Virginia, where I'm located, is that they think everybody that goes to a concert is between 25 and 35 and can stand up for 3 hours. And, to be able to have a seat and enjoy and appreciate the performance is very important in its perpetuation, because so some of these people, they're not real fans, but they'll come out. But the older citizenry who have helped the venue and perpetuated the music and spirit we still out here and we need to be considered. So they should have some accommodations for folks to, sit back and enjoy the performance. And on the performance of the Palm Court at Snug Harbor, I'd also like to throw in a point. I emceed at Snug Harbor for many years, and for 25 years, I wrote the liner notes for their monthly newsletter. It was called Harbor Splashes. And if anybody's got copies of that, you can see, hey, well, he's still around and he's still talking music and trying to get people to listen to music,
That's
But
beautiful.
thank you very much. And Ellie, my hat off to you. Great series, and continue on.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Dave Robinson had unmuted. Dave, do you have a question?
Yeah, hi, thanks. I just wanted to say that as a periodic visitor to New Orleans, I've had the pleasure of sitting in a number of times at the Palm Court. I got to sit in with Pud Brown years ago, and sat in with another night with Duke Heitker and so forth. So I've got a lot. It was my go-to place in New Orleans. But I also want to give a personal shout out to Nina, because in, let's see, 1999 and I think again in 2000, I brought my youth group down there, the Capitol Focus Jazz Band. And Nina gave them a performance slot on the stage at the Palm Court, and even contributed something to their trip expenses. And so we had a PRJC night a couple of years in a row at the Palm Court with the young folks playing, and it was a lot of fun, and I really appreciated Nina doing that for us.
That's really cool. I had remembered reading somewhere that happened. I didn't realize that Nina had somewhat sponsored that. So that's really cool. That's a really cool memory. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
I have my own.
they would open the place up for students before the shows. A lot of times that happened. But Dave, I'm glad you brought that up, because the Palm Court was one of those places that was open to musicians to come and sit in. We always had musicians sitting in, Europeans, people from all over the States. So it was a place where musicians knew they could go there and sit in with the band. So thanks for bringing that up. That was
Lars would not let me sit in when I tried.
almost let everybody sit in.
Craig, that explains how I got my tie with the Palm Court in 2010 or 2011, when Banu Gibson had first started her traditional jazz camp. Our after camp jam session was at Palm Court. So she opened it for us students. Yeah, us is right. As opposed to we.
Yes, objective, not
subjective. And
yes.
Some on my computer desktop. Ellie, do you have the photos that I sent you?
When did you
you didn't?
when did you
I'm
send
not
them?
good at sharing. If you find it, let me
When
know.
did you send them? Tonight?
A couple of days ago, anticipating.
Okay, let me see if I can get to those.
So if you find them, there's a couple of good shots of Nina in there in full dance mode, having a time of her life. And I knew nothing about who Nina Buck was. I saw some frail, elderly lady dancing her ass off, pardon my French, second lining with a parasol and having time of her life. And somebody told me that it was Nina Buck who owned the place. Okay, now fast forward to 2024, April of 2024, French Quarter Fest. I'm waiting for Uber in front of Palm Court, trying to get back to my place. And I'm dog tired, and I've just been called to try to get reservations that night to join up with a friend who's having dinner there. And I'm told no more room in the Palm Court. We're full. I can't do anything about it. And I'm waiting for the Uber, and who comes out of the Palm Court but Nina and another woman, may have been the woman you described before. She's locking up the door, and oh my God, I recognize that lady from the photos I took 10 years ago. That's Nina Buck. Well, I'll go up to her and I'll say, "Hi, Miss Buck. I enjoyed, the thing 10 years ago, jazz camp, blah, 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 blah. And I really wanted to be here tonight. And God, you guys are full to the brim." "Oh, really?" She unlocks the door, goes back into the place, turns around and says, "What's your name?" I said, "Joel." She said, "Joel, you have a seat tonight. Just come by and tell him who you are." I brought my washboard that night, and I got to sit in with the band. And I thought that was super, super cool. Seba Vinay,
Yes.
Yeah, seven
Seba.
Vinay.
right? Banjo player. Yeah, let me sit in that night. Had time of my life.
Fantastic.
That's my 2 moments with Nina Buck. Plus
Nice.
the photos.
Nice.
Now,
I don't see any pictures, Joel. Maybe try resending them, because I'd love to see those.
I see somebody call Buck. Are you related to George Buck?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I hope the name's George or Nina Buck.
Okay. I'm thinking, wow, you could be maybe one of George's kids or something. I don't know.
One of the ones he didn't know about. The surprise. What up, Carl?
No, I look way too much like my dad, so and grandfather.
Well, I took a chance. I thought maybe that'd be cool, because George was the real reason behind. George was the reason behind Palm Court. There she is.
Oh, fantastic.
There she
That's a
is.
great show.
Yeah.
Cutting the rug. She danced.
Craig,
Crazy.
one of the things we didn't mention just while you were talking about George, but in case people don't know, George was blind. George had been blind since he was like 12. So everything that man accomplished, he accomplished blind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And never played it up, never used a cane.
No.
No.
Yeah, he was a humble person, and the music, he was just in love with this music, and that's why I studied jazzology and GHB. If you don't know what that is, go online and look at that. They release amazing. Oh, he has saved so much and reissued so many recordings that would never see the light of day, because this one person, George Buck, was just so in love with this music. In 1949 is when he started that. So it's been a passion for George Buck, and I think it built up, it culminated to the Palm Court Jazz Café, and his whole vision of it all just came, even though he's blind, his vision of what he wanted to be done in this world of music was accomplished. And it's he set up a trust, and it's going to live forever, releasing this music. So we'll always have this music available for us. And it's early music from the turn of the 20th century. Some blues, even some old country music, but mostly jazz, because that's his love. He loved jazz music. So Buck was the driving force behind all of this, and the way he has it set up, it'll live on forever. And boy, to have somebody to really like jazz music. I mean, not a lot of people like jazz music anyway, I hate to say that, but it's hard to swallow that pill, but it's the truth, and Buck, man, can't say enough about him, and he was so behind the scenes. Nina was the one in the front, and George was always in the back in the scene, And I remember in the early days, him and Nina always sat at a table right in the middle of the club where he could hear exactly what was going on. He wanted to hear that music. So big thanks to Nina and George Buck and Nina Buck for doing what they did. They will live forever because of that.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Craig. Thanks, Jared, for sharing those little clips of the documentary. We look forward to seeing that later. Thanks to everybody who came and everybody who donated toward tonight's program so we can keep things going. We really appreciate that. And with that, we'll call it a night and hope to have see both of you guys at some point in the future. We're trying to get Craig out here to play at some point. We're trying to line up post fest schedules with potential bands. So we'll be working on that a little bit too. But one of these days we'll make that happen. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ellie.
You're
Bye,
welcome.
everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Really nice to meet you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you for doing it.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Bye.